The Rams have one of their toughest challenges of the season this Sunday when they host the red-hot Eagles on Sunday Night Football. We're going to tell you how they can get that win on another crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and what is up, Eagles fans, and welcome to another crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Eagles. We're previewing Sunday Night Football, NBC. The Eagles coming to SoFi Stadium, a Week 12 showdown. And, of course, the Eagles, one of the best teams in the league. The Rams trying to keep their playoff hopes alive. And my name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. Been covering LA sports for over a decade. Sports Illustrated, 24/7 Sports, Bleacher Report, Dodgers Nation. And today I'm joined by Louis DiBiase, the host of Locked On Eagles. And we're going to dive into this matchup, a jam-packed mega preview. We got storylines, key matchups, might throw out some predictions. But first, today's crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Eagles is brought to you by Prize Picks. Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Okay, Louis, so what I want to start with is the similarities between these two teams. And not a ton of similarities, of course. The Eagles right at the top of the conference, one of the best teams in the league. Since your bye week, you guys have been rolling. But one thing they do have in common is first quarter woes. The Rams have been slow to start games in the scoring department. The Eagles have been as well. The Eagles averaging 1.4 points per game in the first quarter this year. The Rams 1.3 points per game this year. With the Rams, lack of execution, red zone ineffectiveness. But what has been the story with the Eagles and getting off to slow starts in the first quarter?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The Eagles have maybe the most talented offense from a personnel standpoint in football, if not the most talented. I think it's top 3 or top 5, and yet they were the last team in the league to finally score a point in the first quarter, which is unbelievable. I think a lot of it has to do with just the early season inconsistencies of Jalen Hurts as a passer from inside the pocket. He was turning the ball over at a pretty bad clip, and I think Kellen Moore took some time to really get a feel for his personnel in the play calling. So that initial, 15-game, play script, I think is where they really struggled. I will say lately it's been a lot better in the first quarter, but I think it was just a quarterback and a play caller getting to know each other, and they dealt with some injuries too. A.J. Brown missed some time early, so did Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. They're finally fully healthy where they have their entire passing attack intact. So it's funny with all the money that's invested in that unit that it's the most inconsistent part of the team right now. But I do think over the last month it has been substantially better, and I think they're peaking at the right time.
Yeah, certainly. And I think if you're on the Rams side of things, you're asking yourself, are we going to see what we saw last season, where that Rams team got hot? They went 7-1 down the stretch. They were a surprise playoff team that was very close to knocking off the Detroit Lions on the road in the wild card game. And who knows what would happen after that? Well, right now you're sitting at 500. You're in a division that hasn't really been as good as expected. A lot of parity in this division. The 49ers, with the injuries that they've dealt with, they got some tough games ahead of them as well. Can this Rams team get hot? Can this Rams team peak at the right time? And will we get the version of the Rams offense led by Matthew Stafford that we saw down the stretch? Because for the first time in a long time, you can say that not only do you have guys healthy they were expecting to be big parts of this offense, Puka Nakua proved last week that he is a top 10 to 15 receiver when healthy. Makes big plays, especially in the first half. You have Cooper Kupp, who continues to show that, hey, he still has some gas left in the tank, had a big 69-yard touchdown on a cover 0, also had a 5-yard touchdown. So he is making plays once again. And then the offensive line has been the big question. Their big free agency pickup was Jonah Jackson, and kind of played out of position. They wanted to move him to the center spot. It didn't quite work out. Last week, they brought back the offensive line that had been working, led by the rookie out of Arkansas, Bo Limmer, back at the center spot. And the question is, with Kyren Williams, with Matthew Stafford, with the receivers intact, with the offensive line you can trust, can this Rams offense get hot? And it's going to be a tough task against one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL, because since that week 5 bye, this Eagles defense has been clicking.
Yeah, I think they've been maybe the best defense in football, and they have stars at every level. Quinyon Mitchell has been – it's funny, they have maybe the two best rookies on defense in this game, Jared Verse and Quinyon Mitchell. Those are the two favorites to win Rookie of the Year. Quinyon's been playing, honestly, at an all-pro level as a rookie. Zach Bond at linebacker has been one of the best inside linebackers in football. And then you look up front, Jalen Carter has been dominating over the last month and a half on the inside. So they're just playing like a complete unit, and Vic Fangio deserves a lot of credit for understanding his personnel. And it was a choppy start, I think, for this entire team the first 4 games of the season before the bye week. But since that bye, all 3 levels of the defense are humming. And I think that just, again, is a testament to Howie Roseman really staying patient and investing in the young players of this defense, and Vic Fangio putting them all in the right positions to succeed. And Doug, it's kind of interesting, like you mentioned the similarities of this team. I think that's kind of something that is similar, is 2 teams that have been 2 of the most consistent teams, contenders in the NFC over the last 5 to 7 years, but they kind of had to go through a retooling phase on defense, and they have a lot of young pieces now on that side of the football. And I think both defenses in this game are maybe a little underrated this year because there's so many young players that I think the league just isn't used to yet.
Certainly, and with the Eagles, as you mentioned, with Vic Fangio's defense, kind of takes a little while to build that chemistry to understand the new system. And we know that that system is designed to limit big plays and explosive plays. And the Rams, when it comes to generating explosives, they do that at the least amount clip in anyone in the NFL, really close to that. I mean, you want to see more of that from the Rams. Big runs, big completions. You just don't really see that right now. But, I mean, the question I have is, I mean, you look at this Eagles defense. You allow just 273.1 yards per game. That's the best in the NFL. The fewest first downs. You give the fewest net yards, 6th fewest points per game at 17.9. But since that bye week, just 11.3 points per game and 190 yards per game. Where do you think the Rams can find any type of advantage? Or if you're this Rams offense, where do you try to exploit to try to put some points up against this vaunted Eagles defense?
Yeah, it's tough because, again, the Eagles on all 3 levels, there really hasn't been a weakness. I would say it's the run game on the edge. Like, get that outside zone run game going. I think that's the one area of weakness the Eagles have had this year is the edge rushers are good, but they're not great like they've been in years past. They don't have a Hassan Reddick this year. Brandon Graham is, 36 years old now. He's not the elite run defender that he used to be. Josh Sweat's been getting going lately. Same with Nolan Smith, and, Bryce Huff has been very up and down in his first year with the Eagles. But they don't have, like, any stout run defenders on the edge. So I would say right now, like, that's maybe the way to attack them is to really lean on Kyren Williams, especially that outside zone run scheme. But it's tough. I mean, I think what a fun matchup is going to be that I'm looking forward to watching is Cooper DeJean versus, Cooper Kupp on the inside, the battle of the Coopers. That's going to be fun. But yeah, I think the Eagles right now don't really have a weakness. They're not giving up much on the ground or through the air. But when teams have had success this year, they have forced the Eagles to tackle outside the numbers. So I would say if there is a weakness to point to, that would be my guess. Yeah,
and that's always kind of the tough part of going up against a Fangio defense is trying to get some explosive. Like I mentioned, the Rams this year, 8.1% explosive play rate. That's 23rd in the NFL. You mentioned Kyren Williams, 28th in the NFL in runs of 10 yards or more this season. Right. And his 1.6% explosive run rate is 48. So just not something they do. You mentioned Cooper Kupp, another one, 47 catches this season, and only 6 have gone for 20 or more yards. So that's something that this offense has lacked. And you did mention that running back matchup with Kyren Williams. And next, we're going to talk about Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley has been next level this season. And we're going to talk about that matchup. That's coming up next on this crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Eagles. Okay, real talk. We've all been there before, feeling like we're burning cash with those rent checks. It's frustrating, right? But here's the deal. Bill Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. Say goodbye to the money bonfire and hello to a renter's revolution with Bill. Look, been living in LA my whole life. I paid a lot of money in renting, so I would have liked to have something like this a long time ago. Now, Build is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Build points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points toward a flight or hotel. Stay with 500 plus airlines and 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them toward a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Bill Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Bilt points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points with your rent payments today. All right, let's talk about FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. Of course, America's #1 sports book. If you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you think now may not be a bad time to get in there, you can check out all the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play. And, of course, there's so much more on the same page where you're placing your bet. So we're going to get you started at FanDuel with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Let me say that again. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Let's take a look at what's going on. The Rams, they're taking on the Eagles at SoFi Stadium on Sunday, 2.5-point underdogs. They're a plus 500 to win the division. That's the lowest odds of any team right now. So go place some money on the Rams if you believe they're going to win the division. It could be a nice little payoff for you. There's all this stuff and so much more. It's available at FanDuel. So you got to go to FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app on your phone, and they're going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams and Locked On Eagles. Thanks again for tuning in. Want to give a special shout out to all those everyday listeners out there watching every single episode of Locked On Rams and Locked On Eagles, tuning into the podcast. We cannot thank you enough. You should join that everyday listeners club too. Just listen or watch an episode every single day, Monday through Friday. Watch reruns on the weekends, and then you won't miss a thing about your Locked On Rams or your Eagles. Now, here in our second segment, I want to talk about Saquon Barkley because this man is absolutely electrifying. He certainly is, I think, inching towards being in that MVP race. We know the MVP is a quarterback's award, but, I mean, you look at some of his numbers compared to Adrian Peterson's a couple years ago. They're on par with that. And you look at Saquon Barkley this season, I mean, he has 1,137 yards rushing on 197 carries. That's a league high, 5.8 yards per carry. He's been outstanding this season. But tell me, what has really led to his success? I mean, we know Saquon's always been a great player, but how does he fit in this offense, and how much has offense relied on him?
It's the perfect marriage of an elite running back, an elite offensive line, and an elite run game coordinator in Jeff Stoutland. The Eagles have had some amazing run games in the past with LaShawn McCoy and with even Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift over the last few years. But Saquon Barkley is getting all of the meat off the bones, unlike those running backs, Sanders and Swift specifically. And it's in the second half. Like, he's closing games out and he's elevating. He's creating yards. Like, yeah, the line is doing a lot of the work. But in the second half of games this year, Saquon Barkley has over 309 yards over expected. He is number 1 in the league in 10-plus yard plays in the second half. He has 5 runs where he has eclipsed 20 miles per hour. Saquon is creating for an elite offensive line. So I think it's just the perfect marriage. And I'm a guy that doesn't like to invest a lot in running back. I don't think every year you should be paying these guys top contracts, spending first-round picks on them. But Howie Roseman saw a market inefficiency where the entire NFL is basically saying, we're not paying running backs that are over the age of 25. That allowed him to tap into a market that saw Saquon Barkley only going for the same amount as like a Darnell Mooney. So I think it was just the perfect timing for a contender that has a complete roster to make a luxury signing. But it hasn't been a luxury move. It seemed like that, Doug, early on, but they have needed Saquon because the passing game has been so up and down. He's had to win them a lot of games. And as you mentioned, when it comes to like the MVP talk, yeah, a quarterback's going to win it. But if there was an award for an MVP that wasn't a quarterback, I don't know if anybody has as good of an argument to win that as Saquon Barkley does. It's a move that Howie Roseman normally doesn't make, but it's one of the best moves he's ever made.
Certainly, and just like this Eagles team that's really exploded since the bye week, I mean, so is Barkley. 6.2 yards per attempt in the last 5 games. And you mentioned his contributions in the passing game too. Just watching a couple Eagles games recently, I mean, he's been a major factor there. I mean, wheel route touchdown in week 9. That dump off against the Commanders, that goes as a 43-yard gainer. Third down dump off against the Cowboys, you go first and goal there. So I think that's what makes it so difficult to try to stop this guy, because he can beat you in between the tackles for an explosive. He can beat you in the passing game. And yeah, a Penn State guy going back to Philly having success like that, it's pretty cool.
No, I totally agree. And that's another area of this offense that's been missing the last few years. You would have thought, considering Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift's explosiveness, that they'd be good receivers, but they really weren't very effective in that way. And I think a lot of that has to do with Jalen Hurts just trusting the check down more. And I think he knows that no matter the situation, it's smart to get Saquon Barkley the ball in the open field. So a lot of past years where Hurts would have tucked the ball and ran, this year he's giving Saquon the opportunity to make plays, and that's how last week, just a 2-3 yard dump off turns into a 43-yard play from scrimmage. So that's another dynamic of this offense that hasn't been there in years past that Barkley is bringing to the fold. So yeah, he's been everything they expected him to be, if not more. I don't think I truly thought Barkley I thought he was going to be an upgrade, obviously, over Swift from last year, but I didn't think he was going to be this good. It's been an incredible addition.
Yeah, just the run game with Jalen Hurts and kind of the evolution of Hurts. It feels like he's doing a little less, but it's kind of leading to a little more. You're seeing less turnovers from Hurts. He can always impact you in the run game. But what's been the state of Jalen Hurts? Because I know there's been some up and downs with him in Philly.
It was rocky. I was a little nervous early this year where he led the NFL in turnovers. I didn't think he was seeing the field well inside the pocket. Wasn't having a lot of elite moments. Like last year was up and down, but at least he had some incredible moments against the Chiefs and the Bills. He was an MVP favorite halfway through the year. We weren't getting that until the bye week. He finally started taking care of the ball better. I think Kellen Moore started using him more under center, play action looks, getting the ball out quicker. Just getting him more in a rhythm. I think that's done wonders for Jalen's development this year. And I think another thing is his explosiveness is back. Like he was hurt all of last year, and Jalen's taken a lot of steps year after year as a passer. But what makes Hurts great is his dual threat ability. And when you don't have that, defenses are going to make him sit in the pocket. And this year, he's been able to create, he's trusting Saquon and the check down more, but he's also getting chunk yardage again as a runner. And that's something they missed last year. So that dynamic has really helped turn things around since the bye week for the Eagles. So Jalen Hurts, he's still an up-and-down passer. I thought last week he really struggled, but he's had some elite moments as well. Against the Jaguars, against the Bengals, he has shown that he still has that MVP caliber play in him. Maybe not every single week, but it's in there, and hopefully you get that at the right times, especially when it comes time for the playoff run.
Yeah, and if I look at from the Rams side, kind of what is the way that you can get to this defense? And we saw a couple weeks ago Baker Mayfield having success and kind of getting the ball out quick. Matthew Stafford has done that all season, the third fastest rate. So I think you look at from that standpoint, where can you find some breathing room to try to get some yards, to try to get a rhythm on offense? And I think that's an area where you kind of look at that Tampa Bay game as if there is any form of weakness, any kind of blueprint to follow to try to make something happen, then you got to start right there.
No, I totally agree. And I think from Fangio's defense, they don't like to give up the big play. So they do give up yardage at times underneath. And Stafford, if you get him into a rhythm, and that's the one big thing, Doug, I think you'd agree. Like Stafford's not somebody that likes to extend plays right now outside of the pocket. So they probably want to get him in a rhythm, quick passing game for sure. That's something the Eagles need to adjust if that happens early on, is get Quayon Mitchell and Darius Slay close to the line of scrimmage. Same with Cooper DeJean. It's going to be a fun chess match. Fangio normally has a lot of success against a, McVay, Shanahan type of system, but it's one of the best offensive systems in the league. So I'm really excited for this matchup.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a great opportunity for this Rams team. SoFi Stadium at home. The Rams always have a chance. They're going to be up for this game. We saw a couple weeks ago the letdown on Monday Night Football against the Dolphins team. You just can't have that happen again. I think that this Rams team has very little margin for error.
Yeah.
And, hey, if you're going to try to basically go for broke on your season and potentially either erase your playoff hopes or really take them to the next level, why not test yourself against one of the best teams in the league? And that's what we're going to see on Sunday. So when we come back, we're going to talk some more matchups, some more breakdowns of this Rams-Eagles showdown. We'll talk about the Philly fans in the house, and what can we expect? Will be some brotherly shove. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, the holidays are here. Thanksgiving is next weekend. You always want to give thanks to the people in your life that are helping you get through. For me, it's my friends, my family. And this month is all about gratitude. And along with the people I just shouted out, there's another person we don't get to thank enough, ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. Now, therapy can help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Not just if you've experienced major trauma, it can help you with your coping skills. Whatever you're dealing with, therapy can make your life better quickly. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Welcome back to this crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Eagles. So the way you kind of look at this one playing out, I mean, this Eagles team is on a heater. This Rams team is coming off a big road win against the Patriots where Matthew Stafford really had his best game of the year, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, had gone 6 straight games with an interception. Sometimes this season with Matthew Stafford, it has been frustrating, and there has been some ups and downs. But I think the argument is his biggest weapons, his best playmakers, they weren't there. The offensive line, they dealt with issues all season long on the injury front. I think that this is the time of year where a veteran like Matthew Stafford sees the light at the end of the tunnel. He knows that he needs to play his best ball to get this team to the playoffs. I think we see another really strong performance from Matthew Stafford. I'm not here to say that the Rams are going to win. I'm not ready to throw that out there, but I do think that the Rams are going to be in this game in the fourth quarter.
No, I completely agree. I think the Rams are one of the more underrated teams in football, and I was a big fan of their roster heading into the season, and I think injuries have really derailed it. And I think for the Eagles, another motivating factor here is I don't think you want to play Matt Stafford in the first round of the playoffs. When you start looking at like who you want to play in the first round, I think that's the one team that I kind of hope doesn't get in, right? Or maybe they win the division, so you don't have to worry about that being the first matchup. So that's another reason you might want to win this game and keep the Rams down, because Matt Stafford, to me, is still a top 3 quarterback in this conference. I think they're going to be in it the entire game. I think it's going to be close. The Eagles right now, according to FanDuel, are 2.5-point favorites. I think they will cover that, and they'll take care of business and win this game in Los Angeles. But, yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a one-score game, and it's going to be a fun chess match between 2 of the best quarterbacks in the conference and 2 of the best offensive and defensive minds in the league.
Certainly, and I also want to kind of highlight some of these rookies because for the Rams, Jared Verse has been a monster this season. When you look at sacks, when you look at pressures, he's the odds-on favorite. He's going to run away with the Defensive Rookie of the Year award. Yep. And then you got Braden Fisk, who had a monster game against the Patriots. He's been continuing to get better, and I think that everything really clicked into place mid-season, the game kind of slowing down for him. They really hit on these 2 guys. And then you got Cooper DeJean. You got some players for the Eagles that have really had a great start to their careers in the NFL, and I feel like this Eagles team really needed that in year 1.
Oh, desperately, yeah. And Quinyon Mitchell in the first round has been...
Yeah, Quinyon Mitchell's a beast.
I can't believe he fell to them, and they didn't even need to trade up. It's unreal how good he has been. So, yeah, I think both teams have hit their first 2 picks out of the park, and they needed it. I think both teams, it's really interesting to see kind of the lifespan of their defenses, where they had a lot of veterans, stars, high-paid players, and then that era kind of ended, and they had to adjust and draft really well. And I think both teams have done a really good job of that. I think LA more so up front, even though I really like the Cam Kitchens pick as well. But I think the Eagles, they needed really to get younger in the secondary. They were old and slow and couldn't tackle in the defensive backfield last year. And Howie Roseman normally doesn't like to draft corners early in the draft. This was the first time he took a corner in the first or second round in 7 years, and he's only done it one other time in 15 years. So it was a much-needed move. Mitchell and DeJean have been great. But, yeah, for the Rams, too, like, the Eagles have a really good offensive line, but they got to take this young Rams front seriously. Not just them, but a couple second-year players as well. Byron Young, Kobe Turner. That's going to be a fun, Doug, like a strength-on-strength matchup as the Eagles front their offensive line against that Rams pass rush.
Yeah, and that's the big difference between this team. Of course, you can't fill Aaron Donald's shoes as a one-of-one player. He's never coming back. But what you can do is in the aggregate, and you can have players like Kobe Turner getting pressure, and guys like Bobby Brown have been effective in the run game. Byron Young, second-year edge rusher. Michael Hoyt, who kind of just doesn't make sense. He's listed as 310. He's not 310, but he's a big dude that has success on the edge as well. And this team has been able to get pressure. This team, since their bye week, have been one of the better defenses in the NFL. Really, their weakness is the secondary and limiting big plays as well. I mean, that's kind of the area where you look at the Eagles, you look at every single level, you see a lot of quality, whereas the Rams, it's their strong suit is the defensive line. It's getting pressure. And then the linebacker play against little crossing routes, little mesh routes, they can struggle from that standpoint. The safety play, you mentioned Kinchins. I mean, guys like Cam Curl, the safety play has definitely been up to par, but it's those boundary corners and some of those kind of crossing routes, those dig routes that they struggle with at times.
Yeah, Doug, that is the mismatch I'm looking at for the Eagles. Last week I said against Washington, the blueprint was run the ball against the Commanders' defense. That's how the Eagles won that game. This time around, I think if they're going to win the game and outduel Matt Stafford, it will be through the air on the backs of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. And I hope that's how they win this game because it's unfortunate how much money they've invested in the passing game that they're still this inconsistent, but they really have been, like, between the passing offense, the rushing offense, the passing defense, and the rushing defense of those four units, the passing offense has been the most inconsistent. So they need to start stringing together some impressive performances through the air before the playoffs, and I hope this is a game where they do get right. They're right now 16th in overall passing DVOA, and I think that's just unacceptable when you have as many weapons as they do. So I think the key is to pass the ball in this game, and I want to see the Eagles be more consistent in that way, especially early in the game.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the big key. And I think at home, if you're the Rams, you need to find some way to get a better showing from the running game. I mean, since the bye week, I mean, you look at where the Rams are at, they're 25th in rushing success rate, they're 28th in EPA. I mean, you've really been a bottom five running team, and you don't have that explosive player like a Saquon Barkley. But what you do have is Kyren Williams, someone that can be consistent, that has dealt with some turnover issues in the last couple of games. But you really need more of a balance, and you need to find a way to keep that explosive Eagles offense off the field. If the Rams think that they can just rely on getting explosive plays when they really haven't had as many this season, Vic Fangio, he's designed to stop that. If they think that they need to play a clean football game, Matthew Stafford has to be on. The Rams basically have to bring their A game to have any chance of winning convincingly. They don't really blow teams out, but you need an A game from the Rams and need to hope that you get kind of a B minus game from the Eagles.
And Doug, it's such an important game for the Rams. I mean, that entire division is 6-4 or 5-5, and it's kind of a bloodbath in the NFC West right now. So this is as much of a must-win game for LA as there come.
By the way, man, I've been looking for my picture. I picture with Saquon Barkley. I can't find it. Whatever. I was going to show it, but I'll send it to you on the side, man. I need that T-shirt where he's doing the reverse.
Oh, I bought one. I have
hurdle.
The shirt.
You got the shirt?
I got the shirt. Yeah.
He's wearing the LeBron cleats.
Yep.
Saquon Barkley, man. He's been unstoppable. But how do you see this one playing out? Because the way I look at it is this. I mean, this is a Rams team that they don't ever see themselves punting on seasons. They don't ever see themselves tanking. I mean, they're always in it to win every single game. And when you have an elite quarterback when he's right, a Super Bowl winning head coach, veterans that care, and then rookies that are emerging, the Rams are going to bring it on Sunday Night Football. It's just, can you go out there and execute? And is there that big of a talent gap between the Rams and the Eagles? That's kind of what I'm worried about. Because you look at their top 10 best players kind of matched up, you feel okay about that. When you kind of get past that, that's where the Eagles definitely have an advantage. But I do think that the Rams are going to be in this one in the fourth quarter. I think they certainly will cover. But I'm going to sleep on it one more night to throw out my prediction.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Again, the line right now is 2.5. It's kind of a rat line there. So I kind of like the Eagles to cover that. I think it will be a one-possession game, but I'll take that minus 2.5. The over-under right now is at 48.5. Doug, I think there's going to be points in this game, so I'd probably take the over on that. But when it comes to like straight up, I think the Eagles will win this game. But yeah, I think it's going to be close. And again, the Rams need it badly. So I don't think this is going to be like even the game. I was surprised at how commanding of a win the Eagles had, no pun intended, against Washington. I don't think it's going to be the same kind of setup for Sunday Night Football or the same outcome.
It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a Sunday Night Football game for a reason, right? So you got to love that. Last question I have for you. Favorite Eagles uniform? Are you a throwback Kelly Green guy? I still always like the black. I know that sometimes black is the black, especially now that they've had the black helmets. I'm feeling those. Yeah, they've been experimenting a lot finally the past few years with different jerseys. They've even implemented the black pants with the white helmet or with the white jersey and the black helmet. They did that this year for the first time in the Brazil game. Kelly Green is the best looking jersey to me in the NFL, but I'm somebody that grew up with the Eagles being midnight green, and I think nostalgia sells in the league. So if everyone's now saying, oh, go to Kelly Green, go to Kelly Green, I think if the Eagles went to Kelly Green full time, everybody then would call for the midnight green. I just think that's kind of the way it works. So I think they have the perfect balance right now of the midnight green being the main, which is what I want. They won a Super Bowl in those jerseys. That's what I know. And the Kelly Green's the alternate with the black. I think they have the perfect rotation right now. Kelly Green looks the best. But for me, when I think of the Eagles, Doug, I do think of the midnight green. So I think those are crisp. I want to keep changing up, though. Give me green on green. When the black jerseys are out, give me white pants or green pants instead of all black. I want to be like the Oregon Ducks on us, huh? That's what I was going to say. I want complete jersey freedom in the NFL. We're finally getting there with the multiple helmets now that are available, but I want them to go all in on the college football style. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely where they're going towards. You know, the NFL loves that. They like cohesion, but they also like more money, and you definitely go that route. What do you think about the Rams jerseys? So, I mean, I'm like with the Rams jerseys, I think when they first dropped, I was a little torn on them because I just think that, I mean, you look at Sports Illustrated in the 80s, they had the Rams as the #1 jersey in the NFL for a long time. Right. Classic look. The horns are classic. But I have grown to like the modern throwback. The white with the yellow is my favorite combination. Actually. The blue with the yellow is my second favorite, to the soul with the Rams Royal. But look, I mean, for me, you've seen some teams kind of go a little like the Browns and the Buccaneers, for example. They kind of went a little backwards to a little more of a throwback look. They're going to rebrand at some point, and I kind of want to see a little more of a throwback, a little more traditional look from the Rams look. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this is better than like the St. Louis Rams look for sure. I'm not a navy blue guy at all. Yeah, you know what's funny? I will say, like, I know a lot of Rams fans kind of hate those jerseys, but for me, that's kind of like when I was a really young kid. That's when I started playing like video games, and that team with Marshall Faulk and the Greatest Show on Turf, and also good kind of like represents that era of the Rams, kind of those. But I don't love them, right? But I'm like, they kind of have their place in Rams history. I like when teams kind of do a modern version of a throwback, and that's kind of what the Rams are doing. But I'm with you, though. Just go all the way back. Like when you have a jersey that was as good as the Rams had in the 80s, just like, you know, keep it simple, stupid, and just go back to those jerseys. So that would be or at the very least, give me one throwback night per year, like you're doing with the Kelly Greens. That's all I ask for. You don't have to go full time. We'll stay with them. Seattle's doing with theirs. The throwback, the NFL is crushing it right now with throwback jerseys. So I hope the Rams get involved in that for sure. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rams fans, Eagles fans. You got a great one in store on Sunday Night Football, Rams, Eagles, and of course, follow Louis DiBiase. Even if you're a Rams fan, this guy knows ball. You definitely want to be following him and follow him at DiBiase, LOE, over on the X. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams.